Oh, Pillow Talkers, do I have a treat in store for you in today's episode? My friend, Brenda Munson, who is a body connection coach and an extremely sensual being, is here to talk to us about sensuality and how to bring pleasure into our every experience, into our every moment. OMG. So we actually recorded this episode, I think back in May or June, something like that. I had initially invited Brenda for a conversation in the men's round of Magnetics Love School. And the conversation that I had with her was so impactful to me, so impactful for how I have since then integrated pleasurable physical experience into my everyday, into my every interaction, and really learned to prioritize feeling good physically. So Brenda and I will get more into this in the episode, but when I say sensual, I literally mean the senses, right? Not just sexual. We'll get into that as well. But what I have noticed since I had that initial conversation with Brenda, and it was so impactful to me, is in prioritizing having the textures around me that I love and having the smells around me that I love, indulging my senses as much as possible, having the foods that I love, et cetera, I'm more patient. I am more present. I am generally in a state of delight and pleasure far more frequently, which inarguably translates into how I show up in relationship with other people. Whew! Oh, yeah. Trust me on this. If you start to prioritize sensual pleasure in as many of your experiences as you can, I guarantee, and I don't make guarantees that often, I guarantee it will shift your energy and your attractiveness to other people. I guarantee this. Just want to remind you that Flirt Harder, speaking of sensuality and becoming more attractive and creating more attraction, et cetera, Flirt Harder, my month-long intensive into the energetics of flirting, the mastery of creating attraction. We are beginning October 20th. We are enrolling through October 19th. So go to coraboydcoaching.com/flirt harder, snag your spot. It would be, dare I say it, my absolute pleasure to spend this month with you. I have been downloading all the codes. I have been doing the deep ruminations. I have been distilling these teachings around flirtation. I've said it before. This is one of my absolute favorite things to teach, partially because it's so fucking fun. It is so fucking fun because flirtation is literally just play. It is in the energy of playing in the realm of potential, playing in the realm of possibility. It is also something that is so deeply effective. I love coaching around flirtation because once this clicks, this is when I see my clients really start to attract partners, attract dates, etc., right? Because obviously the missing link is creating attraction. Once you click into, oh, here's how I create attraction by introducing flirtation, game over, my friends, game fucking over. So it would be my absolute pleasure. Head on over to coraboydcoaching.com/flirt harder, snag your spot, get your enrollment. Without further ado, Brenda Munson, the most sensual being I know. Relax. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Welcome to Pillow Talk Radio, the most delicious place to be. On this podcast, we explore how to create more connection, possibility, romance, and magic in love and in life. I'm your host and relationship specialist, Cora Boyd. Are you with me? Hello. Welcome, Brenda. Thank you for coming. So my friend Brenda Munson is here. And Brenda, I would love to hear you describe what you do because it is so delightful. And I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. We've had conversations like this in the past, and they're always so fun, so juicy. So, my name is Brenda, and I am a body connection coach. I essentially help women who are on the path of awakening to really dive into a fully turned on life. That's pretty much what I do in a nutshell.
Yeah. So tell us, what does it mean to be turned on or to live a turned on life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, essentially, what I mean by turned on is it doesn't always have to be sexually related. A lot of the times when we hear the word turned on, we think of eroticism or sexuality, but it doesn't always have to be that. In fact, turned on to me means your lights are on. You are so present. You have built relationships with your space around you. You are present in your body. You feel things. Your senses are alive. And not only that, but you're finding pleasure in your everyday life. You're finding moments of pleasure. That's kind of what turned on means to me.
Yeah. So what are some examples of those moments of day-to-day pleasure? What can that look like? Because I know, not to get too ahead of myself here, but like the last time we talked, because I invited Brenda in to do a little talk for my group program Magnetics around like the differences between sensuality and sexuality, but in a detailed way, or like small examples, what are little ways that can show up?
Absolutely. So there's so many ways. I mean, we have 5 senses, really 6 if you count your intuition. So we have these beautiful senses, especially as women. Our senses are actually even more heightened than our male counterparts. And some examples that I love to give to my clients or help them cultivate more is as simple as, we have this breath, and allowing your breath to just, well, first of all, let's talk about this, slowing down.
Yeah.
Slowing down first and foremost, I think, is a really key, and allowing yourself to slow down enough to find pleasure in little moments throughout your day, throughout your life. So whether that's just taking in a deep breath, whether that's putting delicious candles that just delight you so much around you, so that like that sense of smell is just always so pleasurable, wearing clothes that feel so delicious on your body, and making it a point to like give away things that don't serve you as far as textures on your body that might itch or not feel good, and only allowing pleasurable things on your body from now on. Those are just some examples of things I work with my clients and integrate into my everyday life as well.
Yeah, I think it's so relevant and goes unnoticed so much of the time. Like, first of all, just to talk about breathing, how many of us don't actually know how to breathe, right? Like, so much of my life, I was holding my breath a lot of the time, and it really affects your nervous system. And just like these small ways that we can create tactile experiences to delight us, and recognizing that a lot of irritation within relationships, the ways that we might react instead of respond, sometimes comes from being physically uncomfortable, right? And especially for women, because, a lot of, I'm just thinking back to like corsets, like a lot of clothing for women is deeply, deeply uncomfortable, even high heels, right? Do you ever wear high heels?
I absolutely do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just another layer. It's fun for me.
Yeah.
I definitely wear them only when and if I feel like I want that too, that like extra layer. I totally do.
That's awesome.
And sometimes they can definitely be uncomfortable.
And they are really uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. Yeah. How did you start to wake up your senses? How did you come into the process of doing this kind of work? And then kind of like to piggyback off of that, what shifts have you noticed within yourself or your life in giving attention to this detail of pleasurable sensual experiences?
I love that question. I'll kind of talk about how I got here a little bit. It started back in 2011, and I had decided that I was going to go to a pole dancing class. And one of my best friend, she was also going to come with me, but the day of, she bailed and I had to go by myself. So I went, and it was really, really incredible. This particular dance studio, they have red lights. They turn the lights down. There's candles everywhere. It's such a beautiful ambience inside. And so it really feels like a safe womb when you go in. Throughout the class, they actually had moments where they invited you to gaze at your ankle or look at the beautiful intricacies of your body, to really, really slow down and feel moments like your hair tickling your shoulder, or to feel moments of your ribs fanning out. And I was so unaware that I could feel these things that were happening in my body. And when I took that class, it opened up Pandora's box for me because I had no idea that I could touch the curves of my body. So it was just very, very eye-opening to me. As I continued to take classes, it was so interesting. I would be at like the grocery store and I'd be like, this orange, it just is so beautiful. Look at all the little textures on it. And I just started to notice myself slowing down and beginning to actually feel things. It was almost like the first time. And it was, I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that in slowing down and really learning to become more aware of the experiences that my body was having, it started to just ripple through my life. And outside of the studio, I was just able to start noticing how clothes fit and how uncomfortable, like we were saying, some of my clothing was on my body. Things were tight, things were itchy, some of my shoes really hurt. And I was like, why am I subjecting myself to this kind of, quote unquote torture in my own body when I could be just wearing fabrics that feel really good and shoes that are actually really comfortable? And this is, I guess, a really great segue to how it really changed how I live in my body and how I live my life, I think, from that moment on. Because what's really interesting is I'm married, and at the time when I started this journey, my now husband and I, we were just starting to date. And I remember, even down to just our personal intimacy relationship, I remember one time laying in bed and him, beginning to try to like seduce me and all of that. I felt so uncomfortable in my body that I remember just like pushing him away, telling him, I can't even do this right now. Like, I feel so uncomfortable in my body, and I don't even want you to see me right now. Either we turn off all the lights or, I just felt so uncomfortable. And that was so sad. I didn't know any better at the time though. So as I started to go on this journey, awakening my senses, becoming really, really comfortable with my body, accepting her, loving her, it really started to affect how I was showing up in my relationship. Once I started to feel into my own pleasure and discover what brought me pleasure and what kind of touch I really enjoyed, which could only have been discovered on my own, then I could bring that into my relationship. And then I could be like, hey, you know what? I really like it, and be, vocal about it too. I really like it when you do this, or I feel really comfortable when we start really, really slow, or it's like fireworks in my relationship after that, because I just knew myself so much better and was able to really communicate that with my now husband. And the confidence too that I started to embody, he saw it like night and day. It's really cool that he was like a witness to my growth through all of this. So not only did it affect my relationship, it just affected the way that I showed up to my life, to my friendships, to my job. When you feel very secure in your body, and when you feel confident, from this unwavering unwavering place, it has to affect the way you show up in your relationships and anywhere in all compartments of your life.
Two things I'm really hearing in what you're saying. The first is just the notion that, in the same way that we can't selectively numb feelings. So we can't decide, hey, I'm only going to feel good and I'm never going to feel sad, because the capacity to feel, like opening up that channel to feel, is opening up the channel to feel all things. And so like I even hear that, or that comes up in client work with my clients too, around enjoying sex more. And my question is always, where else in your life are you currently experiencing pleasure? Because it's a similar thing. If you're not experiencing that, or open to experiencing it, or aware of your experience of pleasure outside of sex, you're numb to it in sex. And then the second thing I was really hearing is, and what I'm going to imagine is how much more in tune you became in experiencing your feelings and speaking up about what was true for you, what is true for you. So much of how we experience our feelings is in our body, right? We have a gut instinct about something. And if we don't trust our body, if we don't trust that somatic experience, we might ignore it. Or we say, oh, it's fine, or whatever. And to be in tune with that, or how feelings show up in your body, is like a superpower.
I love that you're bringing this up, because yes, I mean, emotion, it gets stuck on our bodies. That's why when I guide women into movement in their bodies, and, they start to move their hips, or they start to just move their spine, tears just start flowing, and they're like, why am I crying? And I'm like, there's so much stuck in our bodies.
Yeah.
And years, decades of things. And so when we start to move and break up those emotions, they begin to release and they begin to come out. And one of the things too that I work with on clients is emotion, identifying emotion and where it lives on different parts of our body, and then teaching them how to release those emotions, how to break it up, how to not judge it, because these emotions are there to teach us. They're there to heal us. As we move and release, like, it can just be a pretty euphoric experience, actually. So I totally believe in, being non-judgmental about these emotions and really allowing the space to let them out.
Absolutely. Sometimes I cry when I get a massage. I started getting massages maybe 6 months ago, and I have learned so much through that in terms of how stress is stored in the body and how we develop muscle memory for both stress and relaxation. And I imagine, not an expert on this whatsoever, but I imagine we develop muscle memory for that kind of like sensory awareness too. So yeah. I'm so curious, because I feel like I'm kind of on the beginning of my journey with sensory awareness, building sensory awareness. What is it like now at this point in the process? Is it like there's a whole nother dimension that you're privy to? What is it like?
Like on my side?
Yeah, to have been doing this work in such an intentional way for a while.
It's so interesting. This is so silly, but this is like, I don't know. This is the only way I can think of like how to describe it. So if you ever watched Twilight, the movies, or if you ever read the books, there's this moment where Bella becomes a vampire, and it kind of talks about how she sees everything so differently now. And she even sees like the dust particles like falling through the air, and the colors are so much vibrant. And I honestly feel like before, everything was kind of monotone, almost gray. It was just very dull in my life and the way that I lived day to day. After, especially after doing this work now for many years, there are moments where I'm just like in awe of certain colors. Like, I just see things catch my eye so much easier. It's almost like I get distracted by beauty or awe. and I slow down and just like drink it up, and it feels so good. And I'm also able to catch myself in moments where I am disconnected. Even earlier today, I had been sitting on my computer doing some work, and I got up to go get some water, and I had opened my mouth to drink some water, and I was like, whoa, my jaw is so tight. Like I apparently had been sitting here with a really clenched jaw and didn't even know. But I was able to catch myself, and I was able to like utilize some tools, to like kind of unclench that and just move my body, letting my neck go for a moment and just getting back into a more pleasurable experience in my body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And we haven't used this word yet, but what it really sounds like is a heightened capacity to appreciate in a physical way. And how that translates to the emotional experience and the emotionally pleasurable experience.
When you just have those moments, when you begin to awaken to your body, there's just so much appreciation that begins to happen, and awe of the fact that you do live in this incredible vessel. There is a lot of that in the awakening process. It's really, really beautiful. I love watching that happen and unfold.
How do you feel like, both in your personal journey and also in leading clients through this process, how does relationship with body image come into play and shift?
That's a great question. It shifts a lot. I have seen women come into my classes or begin working with me who have a lot of shame around their bodies, rightfully so. We've been taught our whole lives to close your legs, to not show off your skin, to not wear too short of a skirt or shorts, or, like you can't wear anything too tight. All of the above. There is so much shame. There is so many stories with our bodies, like, my God. And when you start this journey of body connection and giving yourself the space to just like be with your body and acknowledge that you have a body, it can be a slow, sometimes even painful process to uncover and to just sit with your body and the emotions that come up. But then you start to build this beautiful relationship with your body where it's almost like guardianship, and you start to begin to create safety within your body. From a place of guardianship and safety, I really feel like then you can begin to start discovering different kinds of pleasures and different things that actually delight you, because you have become connected now, and you are starting to give your body the space to have a voice, which we normally don't. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it totally does. Part of what I love about talking to you about all of this is how your enjoyment is just like oozes out of you. It's so evident. It's so inspiring what your experience of being in your body is and how good that feels. It's very inspirational.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the difference between sensuality and sexuality.
I love this topic because it's a great point of learning for many, many people. I think that the words sensuality and sexuality can definitely get mixed up with each other. Yeah, like some people say sensuality when they mean sexuality and vice versa. So here's a really great, easy way to remember the difference between the two. And I'll also kind of go into my personal definition of each and how I separate them. Essentially, sensual is not always sexual. Your senses and your sensuality can absolutely lead to a sexual experience, but sensuality in and of itself does not need to be sexual. It's not inherently sexual. Your sensuality, it's like an embodied presence and heightened awareness arising from your senses. So, your smell, your touch, your taste, what you feel, and your intuition, of course, I strongly believe. And so it's just like a deep, deep connection and awakening of your senses. To me, when you turn the volume up on those, you are really experiencing a deep sensual experience. We're all inherently sensual. I just want to lay that out because we all are. We all have senses. And it's so pleasurable when you learn and exercise the muscle of turning them up. So that's sensuality. And like I said, sensuality can lead to a sexual experience. Like, if you're having a really beautiful dinner with a partner and you're just so delighted by the food that you're eating and you get in the mood and the vibe is amazing. And of course that can lead to a sexual experience. Your senses have become enlivened because of that experience. In turn, your sexual experience might be turned up because of that. So to me, sexuality is more revolving around an expression of sexual receptivity or interest, of sexual interest. So I think that there's a difference there between the two, sensuality and sexuality. And also, another really easy way to remember is that sensuality really comes from within. It comes from, like I said, your senses. And it's not about acting in any certain way. Sensuality is not that. It's not
performative.
It's not performative. It's an embodied experience.
So for anyone who doesn't totally understand what we're saying when we say embodied, how would we describe that?
To me, embodied is just being very aware of your body's experience in any moment. And whether that's understanding emotion and where it's actually sitting in your body. For example, if I say, just in your head right now, like, how are you feeling? There could any number of feelings could come up for you. And then if I ask you to close your eyes and let your hands kind of come onto your belly and then ask your body where that feeling lives, and let your hands kind of find that place, then you start to embody the emotion. You start to become more aware of your body's experience and where that emotion might actually live, whether that's sadness in your chest or joyfulness in your ribs or whatever. Like, that's just one example. I believe that it's just a really heightened sense of awareness of what your body is experiencing. For example, right now, I'm having so much fun with this shawl because it just keeps draping and tickling my shoulders. And I'm aware of that. Right. And so I'm embodied because I'm constantly aware of this, and it just feels so good.
Yeah. So what I love about everything you're describing and the way in which you're describing it is you're really tapping into the experience of quality, which is quite interesting to articulate with words. And this comes up for me a lot in my work too, because I am in the business of helping people create and experience higher levels of quality in relationships. And especially when I'm working with men who have not been socialized as much as women to understand intangibles and non-linear metrics like quality, right? Versus, well, how does that show up in a tactile way?
The feminine energy is definitely more flowy and definitely more experiencing, and versus like the hunt or like the end goal.
Or the goalposts, even relationally, of like, we're aspiring to quality, we have to speak and understand in intangibles. What I really feel like your energy is capturing too is the creamy deliciousness of this quality of existing and being in pleasure and being in a body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And quality is something that we have talked about too in the past. Quality is so much about slowing down. There's so much power in slowing down because it gives space for us to be hyper alive in our bodies.
To savor tactile experiences and non-tactile experiences.
Yes. And I definitely also want to be clear that when I say slowing down, I'm not inviting everybody to move like a snail throughout their life. but it's finding, I call them micro moments. I'm a mom. I have a business. My life is very full, and I must find micro moments to slow down in order to come back into my body. Like I was saying earlier, when I went to go get a glass of water and I noticed that my jaw had been so tight for an hour.
Right.
Yeah, there's so much power in slowing down.
What are a few things that someone who might be listening to this and is like, damn, I've got to get on that train? What are a few little ways that someone starting out might begin to play with heightening sensory awareness?
I love that so much. There are so many tactile ways to really begin to embody this. I think first is just allowing more breath into our lives. And that's a really simple one. I mean, just taking the moment to take a really deep breath. And that can be very challenging for some people because we are so used to taking these shallow breaths. One thing that I was recently talking to a client about was I had asked her to take a deep breath, to inhale for 10 seconds and to slowly exhale for 10 seconds. And that was actually really hard for her. And so I told her to inhale to the point of where it felt like she couldn't anymore, like no matter how long, if it was 5 seconds or 4, whatever it was. And then just slowly exhale, and then to just take it 1 second longer the next time. And then take it another second longer and another second longer until maybe she was capable to getting to 10. And maybe it wouldn't happen for another week or so. But the more that we begin to allow more breath, that is such an easy way to begin to connect to your body. Giving your body that breath of life, that oxygen that we need so desperately. I feel like a deep breath can change. It can be pivotal. It can change the way that you approach the rest of your day.
What completely calms down our nervous system.
That's definitely one. Another thing that I love to share with clients is to just check in with what feels good. In general, start asking yourself what feels good versus, is this what I should be doing, or is this where I need to go? Or sometimes when I don't know what to do first, if I have like a long list of things to do in the morning in my day, I'll first ask myself like, what is going to feel good to do first right now? Like, what's going to feel really good? Is that sitting on my couch instead of my desk while I work? Is that taking a shower before I even look at my computer? Like, what is going to feel really good? Starting to ask yourself that brings you into your body first and foremost. And then beyond that, you can start asking yourself, when you put your clothes on for the day, does this feel good? Is this itchy? Am I gonna be able to last in this bra all day?
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So starting to ask yourself those questions specifically are gonna just naturally begin to tune you into your body's experience. And again, give your body a voice. Give your body the space to have a voice and a space to speak up, because our minds can get so dominant and so controlling almost of the experience of our body, instead of our body having the space to really communicate.
It's so simple, and it gets put on the back burner so frequently. While you have a captive audience, what's been on your mind recently? What's something you wish more people knew?
Wow, that's such a great question. I think the number one thing that I can't wait for my clients to discover is that all of this is accessible. This is accessible to you. Your experiences, your life experience, your relationship with your body. It is possible to speak more kindly to your body. It is possible to change the relationship that you have with your body. It is so accessible, I believe, to everybody, because you're inherently sensual. All you have to learn is how to exercise these muscles in order to begin having these more heightenedly aware or hyper alive experiences in your body. That's the number one thing I really wish and want people to know, that it is accessible to you. it gets to be pleasurable to live in your body. It gets to be fun. It gets to be enjoyable. It gets to feel good. It gets to feel good living in your body.
So how can people find you if they want more?
Yeah, I would say the best way is just to go to my website, which is sensual-self.com. And there's lots of information there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Wonderful as always.
It was so
keep
juicy.
on feeling good.
Oh, yeah. Do something incredibly sweet for yourself today. Everybody, including you, Cora, that feels really good to you.
Oh, I will. Challenge accepted. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pillow Talk Radio. We hope you'll join us on the next one. And if you got some value, if you had some ideas, if you had some insights from this episode, I would so appreciate you leaving a review of Pillow Talk Radio on Apple Podcasts so that I can know what you're jamming out on, I can know what you're into, and more people who could benefit from this content can join us. See you next time.